promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Authorities in Guinea dissolve scores of political parties following evaluation.
We collected the data, analyzed it, and the final results show that the approvals have falsified signatures from ministers.
Ghana's Electoral Commission temporarily postpones printing of ballot papers over death of a presidential aspirant. In Mali, prison guards union suspend industrial action. West Africa Civil Society Institute WACSID launches environmental assessment of civic space in West Africa report for 2023.
We are in a context within West Africa where we are facing threats to our civic space.
Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Let's begin in Guinea, where the government has dissolved more than 50 political parties on Tuesday and suspended others for a period of 3 months. After several months of evaluation of political parties, the Guinean Ministry of Territorial Administration also decided to put under surveillance nearly 70 parties, including that of former President Alpha Condé and opponent Celo Jalon, a decision immediately denounced by political parties who intend to take legal action. From Conakry, here is Chernoff Ibrahim Abadi's report as voiced by Christopher Ticho.
After several months of studies, the report on the evaluation of political parties was finally made public on Tuesday. In its document, the Ministry of Territorial Administration announced the dissolution of 53 parties. 54 others were suspended for a period of 3 months, while 67 are placed under observation for 4 months. In addition, 37 political parties have not been evaluated. Jinabo Kamara is the Director of Political Affairs at the Guinean Ministry of Territorial Administration.
We collected the data, analyzed it, and the final results show that the approvals have falsified signatures from ministers. You will also see that there are political parties that were created without ever having a bank account or functioning properly. They exist solely to form alliances sometimes, and after the elections, they cease to operate.
Major political parties such as the UFDG of the Celo Della Diallo, the UFR of Sidia Touari, and the RPG Ac and Cell of Alpha Condé are among the 67 placed under observation, an approach that Joachim Baba Melimino, coordinator of the UFDG communication unit, says he does not understand.
After the evaluation, there was only one requirement that was not met. Therefore, I am extremely surprised that we find ourselves in the category of parties under observation.
The United Guinea for Integrity and Development, GUID party, as one of the dissolved political parties, has announced an appeal to the courts.
This is a selective dissolution, given our commitments today because we do not want to feel the genesis in politics. We will respond and make our efforts known.
The Minister of Territorial Administration warns that this process of evaluation of political parties will now be continuous in Guinea.
That was a report by Chernoff Ibrahim Abadi and voiced by Christopher Aticho. We cross over to Ghana, where the Electoral Commission has, in the interim, suspended the printing of presidential ballot papers for the upcoming December 7 elections due to the death of Madam Akua Donkor, the presidential candidate from the Ghana Freedom Party, GFP. She passed away on October 28 at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. The Commission announced this decision in a statement on October 29, emphasizing that they have informed the GFP to select a new candidate and notify them accordingly. In light of the constitutional provisions, specifically Article 50, Sub 4 of the 1999 Constitution, which allows a 10-day window for parties to nominate new candidates after a candidate's death, the Electoral Commission has urged the GFP to expedite this process. However, there are concerns regarding the absence of specific guidelines under the Public Elections Regulations 2020, which adds uncertainty to how the situation will be managed. The Electoral Commission expressed condolences to Madam Donkor's family and acknowledged the significant implications her passing has on the electoral process just weeks before the elections. Staying in Ghana, reactions have been mixed following the recently announced U.S. visa restrictions targeting individuals accused of undermining democracy ahead of the December 7, 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. According to the U.S. statement, this policy aims to safeguard Ghana's democratic institutions and ensure a peaceful, transparent and credible electoral process. While some have welcomed the move, others, including international relations expert Dr. Vladimir Antoadanto, have criticized it, describing it as interference in the country's democratic processes. WDL's Nadi Tete reports.
In a recent statement, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that visa restrictions will be imposed on individuals believed to be responsible for or complicit in actions undermining democracy in Ghana. These restrictions target those involved in manipulating or rigging the electoral process, using violence to intimidate or coerce citizens, or engaging in activities aimed at improperly influencing election outcomes. The move has been welcomed by Paul Chumberima, the Member of Parliament for Doma East and Vice Chair of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee.
I think it's their call, and I think, it's something that one would say that it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Exactly. What they are saying is that in the statement, they said they are not preventing government officials or Ghanaians from traveling. No, they are saying certain people they feel may have certain effects on our democracy. As a country, we also have to take certain steps to protect our democracy.
However, Dr. Vladimir Antoadanto, Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College and an international relations expert, cautioned that the policy might be counterproductive.
The choice is good, maybe, but the consequences are not ours. Anything can happen. Antoadanto is winning on the ballot, and they don't like Antoadanto. Then, of course, they would say that the elections were rigged. Who determines the rigging? Who determines the problems? Who determines who has done what?
He also views it as an interference in Ghana's democratic process.
Americans know where to bite and where not to bite. Let us not applaud this on the surface.
You've referenced interference a lot. Do you consider this an interference?
I strongly suspect so. And I'm saying if they really want to support us, ab initio, there are a lot of things we need to cement our democracy. From the institutional point of view, logistics and everything.
According to the U.S., the visa restrictions demonstrate its support for the aspirations of all Ghanaians for a democratic electoral process that reflects the will of the people. For WADR, Nadi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Still talking politics, but in Côte d'Ivoire, where the 2025 election fever is catching on, as parties have begun warming up for the polls, but not with some internal rancors. Among them is the Ivorian Popular Front, FPI, which saw a request by Pierre Dagbo Godé, former vice president of the party, to suspend a planned Congress rejected on Tuesday by the Court of Abidjan Plateau. This now confirms that the party would hold the planned rally for November 8 and 9 in Yamoussoukro. Ogubierika report.
Dagbo Godé, current third deputy mayor of Yopougon, former strong ally of Pascal Affi N'Guessan within the FBI, had requested a suspension of the Congress, citing procedural flaws in the preparations for this gathering. The lawyer and law professor considered that the Central Committee did not have the authority to hold and organize this elective Congress. However, due to this referral to the court, the FBI Central Committee pronounced a suspension on October 20, 2024 of Pierre Dagbo Godé, selected as challenger to Pascal Affi N'Guessan at the upcoming Congress. The Ivorian Popular Front, a historic party founded by former President Laurent Gbagbo, is going through a period of internal upheaval born from the decision of the Central Committee to break the partnership concluded in May 2023 between the FBI and the ruling party, the Rally of Fufuatis for Democracy and Peace, RHDP, in September 2024. Following the divergence of opinion with his collaborators, the president of the FBI had dismissed them from the leadership of the said party. The executives dismissed by Pascal Affi N'Guessan have set up a movement within the FBI, and Mr. Dagbo Godé remains in the race for the election of the new president of the party.
Ogubierika reporting there. In Senegal, as the political campaign for the legislative elections moves into full swing, President Bashir Diomaye Faye has been taking part in the 8th edition of the Future Investment Initiative in Saudi Arabia. A meeting that continues until Thursday and which sees the participation of 7,000 people from all over the world is an opportunity for the Senegalese president to present his project to investors. So far, the president has engaged with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, exchanging ideas on strengthening cooperation between Senegal and the Saudi Kingdom. Several subjects were discussed by the two men, including energy, agriculture, industry, and digital technology. In neighboring Mali, the union sections of prison guards and the justice sector have suspended their strike. They had been protesting following the disappearance of Commander Daouda Konate, the Secretary General of the prison guards, and Nurse Famoussa Fumba, who remain missing. The union coalition announced that they have begun discussions with authorities to secure the release of their colleagues. Our correspondent in Bamako, Ali Cham, sent in this report and voiced by Echa Tiso.
As announced Tuesday, the strike in the penitentiary sector has not been maintained. The union sections of prison guards and the justice sector have decided to suspend their strike action, which threatened to paralyze the justice sector. In a communique addressed to the Ministry of Labour and Public Service, the coalition, which brings together various union sections, announced that they have started discussions with the competent authorities to locate their missing colleagues. They intend to continue social dialogue to ensure the smooth running of activities, the note specifies. Furthermore, the union sections of prison guards and the justice sector remain concerned about the disappearance of Commander Daouda Konate and Nurse Famoussa Fumba, who have been missing for several days. The unionists urge the authorities to better protect workers' rights, especially those working in difficult or dangerous conditions. To recall, Commander Daouda Konate, Secretary General of the Prison Guards Union Section, disappeared last Friday under unknown circumstances after receiving an anonymous call. Since last week, disappearances have been increasing in the capital.
Staying in Mali, President Assimi Goïta received a high-level Russian delegation on October 28 as part of his effort at strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. During the meeting, the discussions generally focused on key sectors such as textiles and hydrocarbons. On the occasion, Irek Salikov, chairman of the board of directors of the Yadran Group, announced the signing of agreements providing for the construction of a gold refinery and a cotton processing plant in Mali. In response, Assimi Goïta reaffirmed his commitment to supporting these initiatives. He took the opportunity to also express his gratitude to the Russian delegation. In the meantime, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday urged oil marketers to purchase locally produced petrol by the Dangote refinery as scarcity continues across the country. In a meeting, the president also reviewed the policy requiring state-run oil company NNPC to sell crude oil to the Dangote refinery in local naira currency in an effort to ease foreign exchange pressure and help the mega refinery secure enough crude to meet its 650,000 barrels per day capacity. Well, here is Nigeria's Finance Minister Wale Adun briefing newsman.
And that whatever the teething problems, whatever the initial obstacles to successful implementation of local sale in Naira of crude petroleum to domestic refiners and the correlating sale of petroleum products in Naira is fully achieved. The determination starts right from the very top, from Mr. President downwards. There's a commitment to make this work. Just over 300,000 barrels has gone to Dangote Refining and Petrochemical Company for them to, of course, refine and make petroleum products out of it. A whole range, starting from LPG, PMS, AGO, kerosene, and jet fuel.
Nigeria's Finance Minister Wale Adun. Meanwhile, following the meeting, Dangote clarified that his business is not involved in retailing petrol and it should not be blamed for fuel shortages in Africa's top oil-producing country. Aliko Dangote stated that the refinery, with a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, has sufficient petrol available, but marketers have not been picking up the products.
So all this, the president now asks, and I said that most likely, the consumption is not going to be that much. I believe with this increase of the price, we, as we are ramping up, because it's a brand new refinery, So obviously we are now at about 420,000 barrels per day. We still have 1/3 to go. Once we get there, we have enough Naira crude. We'll be able to fully satisfy the market. How ready are we? Yes, we are actually very ready. And I told Mr. President that yes, with the enough supply of crude, we can actually produce much more than 30 million liters every day. At full capacity, we can even supply whatever is being consumed. But what I estimated as consumption, which I believe may be about 32 million, that one we can even start producing that by next week.
Nigeria billionaire Aliko Dangote speaking there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar and across partner stations in the sub-region. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Authorities in Guinea dissolve scores of political parties following evaluation. Ghana's Electoral Commission temporarily postpones printing of ballot papers over death of a presidential aspirant. In Mali, prison guards unions suspend industrial action. Still ahead in the news, West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, launches environmental assessment of civic space in West Africa report for 2023. We also have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and do connect all to our Facebook and YouTube for live streaming. Now, the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI, has launched its Environmental Assessment of Civic Space in West Africa report for 2023. The report, which sadly revealed that not much has changed from the previous year in terms of freedoms and democratic indicators, confirms that there are increasing effort by governments across the sub-region to stifle the democratic, economic, as well as digital rights. Nana Asentewa Afanzinu is the Executive Director, West Africa Civil Society Institute.
I wish I could say that there was something different, and that is actually the sad reality, that we are in a context within West Africa where we are facing threats to our civic space. And the 2022 reports that we did and the 2023 reports shows that even though we have been harping on these issues, we are not seeing a response to really and truly addressing them. Some of the things that were highlighted relate to some of the legislative complications that have, burdensome legislative requirements that are put on civil society organizations, some of them actually constraining the space within which they work. Things related to censorship, online censorship, where you have issues affecting press freedoms, the media, challenges to our our rights to assemble, challenges to our freedom of speech, freedom of association, and these are different things that come in different forms, where we actually, as we speak about looking at the digital space, issues around government surveillance, in some of our countries, issues around the clamping down of democratic free expression of people.
That was Nana Asentewa Afadzinu, the Executive Director, West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI. The Gambia and Austria on Tuesday formally signed a bilateral agreement focused on defense and security cooperation, specifically on defense and security, addressing small arms, light weapons, and stockpile management. The significant development follows a 3-day visit by Austria's Defense Vice Minister, who engaged in extensive discussions with Gambian officials. Sankli Janko in Banjul report.
The agreement aims to strengthen efforts in combating the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, which pose significant risk to regional stability. It outlines joint initiatives for training, capacity building, and best practices in stockpile management, enhancing the Gambian Defense Forces capabilities. Sering Modunjai is the Gambia's defense minister.
What we are doing currently as a country is to complete all our regulations in terms of how we are supposed to control these stockpiles. So that is what you have witnessed with our collaboration with the Federal Republic of Austria.
During the signing ceremony, both nations expressed their commitments to promoting peace and security. The Austrian Vice Minister, Dr. Arnold Kamel, emphasized the importance of international collaborations in addressing security challenges.
Because we do believe that by sharing the same values, by sharing training standards, we can contribute to a better understanding in terms of security and safety at the global stage. From the Austrian perspective, we do consider the Republic of the Gambia as being one of the hubs here in West Africa where we can build on a stable relationship in order to contribute to overall peace and stability in the entire region.
In the coming months, workshops and training programs will be implemented to ensure effective knowledge transfer and practical application of new strategies. This partnership, according to officials, marks a pivotal moment for the Gambia, reinforcing its dedication to enhancing national and regional security through responsible arms management and cooperation with international allies. For Newslink and West African Democracy Radio, I am Sankuli Janke reporting from Banjul.
The international organization Human Rights Watch is calling for a thorough investigation into the August 24, 2024 massacre in Basalogo, Burkina Faso, which claimed the lives of at least 133 individuals, including many children. In its latest report released on October 29, the organization criticized the Burkina Faso government for placing civilians at unnecessary risk, notably by employing them as forced laborers. Here are the details with Augustine Koli.
The massacre of over 100 civilians in Basaloko by Islamic armed groups highlights the failure of the Burkinabe government to protect citizens, according to Human Rights Watch. Karin Kanisa Natula, the Deputy Africa Director, said this incident exemplifies the ongoing atrocities committed by armed groups against civilians whom the Burkinabe government has recklessly put at risk. It can be recalled that on August 24, 2024, the Al-Qaeda-linked group JNIM attacked civilians who were digging a military trench to protect Basaloko, which hosts a military base. Armed with rifles and machine guns, JNIM fighters launched a coordinated assault on the workers. The following day, JNIM claimed responsibility for the attack, alleging that their forces killed 300 members of the Burkinabe military and associated militias. Additionally, Burkina Faso Justice Minister Edaso Radjuge Bayala acknowledged that both soldiers and civilian volunteers were among the casualties, although specific death tolls were not provided. Since the entry of these armed groups from Mali in 2016, Burkina Faso's armed forces have been engaged in a protracted conflict against JNIM and the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara. These groups now control significant portions of Burkinabe's territory and continue to launch attacks on civilians and security forces alike, often clashing with one another. The conflict has resulted in over 26,000 deaths since 2016, with approximately 15,500 occurring after the military coup in September 2022 and more than 6,000 since January 2024, as reported by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Organization, ARCLED.
Augustine Curley filed that report.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
We head now to Banjul as we join Sankle Janko for the Newspaper Review.
Hello there and welcome to this edition of the Press Review coming to you from Banjul, the Gambia. And let's begin today's press review with the Fourier newspaper. And the lead story on the Fourier newspaper reads, Nightmare flooding hits Upper River region. That is the last region bordering Senegal on the east. And flooding has been reported in the area. And the biggest town, of course, Basse, where hundreds of settlers as well as businesses have been affected. Migrants die in boat journey to Europe. That's another story on the Fourier newspaper. This one reads, some OIC road project victims yet to be compensated. A Women's Chamber of Commerce awards women. OMVG Council of Ministers meets in Banjul. Let's move on to the Point newspaper for today. The Point newspaper's lead story is related to the Fourier's lead story somehow, because the lead story on the Point reads, top engineer suggests broad study
on Basse River flooding. Flooding in Basse Upper River region has affected hundreds of homes as well as businesses. And now this top engineer is saying that the flooding issue in the Upper River region, Basse to be specific, needs a broad study. Government to construct another 150 kilometers of roads in 2025, according to Minister of Works and Construction, and that is Ibrahim Silla. The Linding Councillor delves into KMC's auction sales. This other one reads, State tenders weightmen and drugs report on Paulo Jabi and co. Paulo Jabi is an alleged notorious drug kingpin. First Lady hails MAG Foundation for Advancing Africa's Health Care. This one reads, man who hypnotized police officer gets 4 years in imprisonment. Senegal's President Faye commits to process raw materials. Now let's move on to the final newspaper for today, and that is the Standard newspaper. And the lead story on the Standard newspaper reads, ex-NAM seeking asylum in Scotland. Please reassure visitors, residents of safety in Gambia. Ex-Lower Nyomi Nam Matarjang dies. That's another story on the Standard newspaper. Still with the Standard newspaper, this one reads, contractor reveals KMC spent over $8 million on fencing Bakote Dam site. These are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Uncle, for the newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, we'll take you back to a story on Ghana, where reactions are trailing the U.S. announcement of visa restrictions targeting individuals accused of undermining democracy ahead of the December 7 presidential and parliamentary elections. Our guest is international relations expert Dr. Vladimir Antwer-Danso.
The democracy is failing in many places with instability and things like that. So maybe it will look on the surface to be a very good policy. At any point in time, you can introduce a policy to enhance your relationship with any other country or countries around the world. But this policy seems to be saying that they want to support democracy in Ghana. What if this policy rather creates a situation of exacerbating the problem and creating instability? It's a known thing that U.S. interventions and deterrence rather exacerbate situation. Let's say Zimbabwe. The hatred for Mugabe translated into embargoes. And these embargoes have caused a lot of problems for Zimbabwe and created political upheavals. Let's take Venezuela. They did their elections, and just because Chavez is not liked, the successor to Chavez party's line, leftist line, once it is a leftist party, Americans don't like it. So they never accepted the results of the elections, and they have hated Maduro up till now. They've created a situation where a rich country like Venezuela is now a pale shadow of itself.
That was international relations expert Dr. Vladimir Antwer-Danso. Well, do join us in subsequent bulletin for the full edition of that interview. In sport news, the Nigerian Football Federation said the Confederation of African Football CAF has picked November 14 and 18 for Nigeria's final 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying matches against the Republic of Benin and Rwanda. A statement on Tuesday by NFF says Match 5 clash with Benin Republic is at the Stade Felix Houphouët-Boigny on November 14 with kickoff at 8 p.m. Nigerian time. Still on football, the Senegalese women's senior national football team were severely beaten 7-0 by Morocco during a friendly match on Tuesday in Casablanca. Recall on Sunday, Senegal and Tanzania drew 1 goal each in the first friendly match in the Moroccan city. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Ju for the technical support. Coming up is 50-50 with Nadia today. I am Imo Edit. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.9